In the last part of the Black Ops 3 Zombies 10-year anniversary retrospective, we talked about Zetsubo no Shima, Black Ops 3's Black Sheep. Even though I personally love Zetsubo no Shima, the community as a whole does not, and especially did not when the map first released back in 2016. The community basically went into hibernation for the 3-month or so gap between Zetsubo and its follow-up, Gorod Krovi, or City of Blood in English. Gorod Krovi was much better received and heavily jolted the community back to life for the rest of Black Ops 3's life cycle, and now 10 years have passed since Gorod initially released. So let's go back and see what made it such a breath of fresh air when it came out and find out if it still lives up to its reputation after a whole decade later. Gorod Krovi is fundamentally pretty much the polar opposite of Zetsubo no Shima. Zetsubo was incredibly experimental and basically unlike anything else that had come before. But on the other hand, Gorod uses the same classic zombies formula that 3's introduced way back in 2009. The map is also very close quarters and urban, very much unlike the majority of Zetsubo save for the bunker, thanks to the setting being a dragon-filled battle of Stalingrad. The map itself is laid out like a plus sign, or a T. At the bottom you have the spawn area, which is called Belinsky Square. This is a bombed out little plaza that has your typical spawn room amenities as well as the map's challenge podiums, in the form of a set of 4 gravestones next to the giant corpse of a dragon. These work the same as the trials on Zetsubo. You get 3 randomly each game, and then there's a 4th one that is the same every game, and that's how you get the map's specialist weapon, but I'll get into that down the line. And thankfully, unlike Zetsubo, none of the random challenges are required at all for Easter egg progression, which is a huge improvement. From Belinsky Square, you can head into the department store, which is a 3-story building that branches off into 4 different paths. The ground floor leads back the way you came into Belinsky Square, the second floor leads to the operations bunker, and the top floor has 2 different paths. The left leads to the infirmary, and the right leads to the armory. Whatever path you take is completely up to you, but normally I take the path to the operations bunker from the second floor. The operations bunker sits underneath the infirmary and armory buildings, and has doors that lead up to the ground floors of both of those buildings. You can also head further left from the infirmary or further right from the armory, but not until the power gets turned on. And alternatively, if you go to either the infirmary or the armory from the top path through the department store, you just need to head downstairs from those buildings to get back to the ground floor. Thankfully, the power switch is in Dragon Command, which is just one last door north from the infirmary and the armory's ground floor. Right through the entrance and to the right of the main staircase of Dragon Command is the map's power switch. And once you flip on the power, you can head to the tank factory and ammo depot, which are the leftmost and rightmost areas of the main chunk of the map, respectively. Out of all of Black Ops 3's maps, Gorod is one of the maps with the simplest setup process for turning on the power, which is very much appreciated, especially when you consider how Zetsubo's lengthy setup process was not received very well by the community since it could get very repetitive very quickly. And this is where the 3's formula really comes into play. You gotta do 3 things to unlock Pack-a-Punch. On Gorod, to open a Pack-a-Punch, you need to get the 3 parts to repair the Dragon control console in the operations bunker. Once you flip on the power switch, zombies will start to occasionally drop colored code cylinders, and there are 3 colors, blue, yellow, and red. Each color corresponds with a console in either the Dragon Command, Tank Factory, or Supply Depot. Blue goes to the Dragon Command, yellow goes to the Supply Depot, and red goes to the Tank Factory. If you put the code cylinder into the correct console, it will call in a Groff module, named after Dr. Groff from Der Eisendrache Moon. This is a big drop pod that falls from the sky into a random spot on the map. You'll know where it lands because we'll shoot a big green beacon up into the sky that you can use to find it, almost like you're trying to find the mystery box or the Wonder Fizz machine. Zombies will attack and try to destroy the Groff module, and you need to kill zombies around it to charge it with souls. Kill enough zombies around the module and it will open up, revealing one of the 3 pieces for the Dragon control console. Repeat this process 2 more times to get all the pieces, then place the pieces into the control console, which is in the middle of the operations bunker. After the console's repaired, you can head back to either the Dragon Command, the Tank Factory, or the Supply Depot and call in a Dragon for 500 points. Each of these areas have these little docking areas with catwalks for the Dragon to land at. Once the Dragon lands, you can hold X on it to ride the Dragon by getting onto its harness / saddle thing that it has. Then after a few seconds, the Dragon will depart and a brief but very high budget cutscene will begin. The Dragon flies you across the city, dodging flak fire and just other explosions and whatnot, until it reaches a house where the Dragon will drop you off. This is the Pack-a-Punch house. It has 2 floors and a basement, and the Pack-a-Punch is on the ground floor right behind the staircase that leads to the second floor and then into the basement. Or I guess 2 separate staircases because they're not connected, but that's it. To return to the rest of the map, head down into the basement, and at the back of the basement is an open grate on the floor that leads into the sewers. Drop down into the water and the current will wash you away. You'll travel a bit before blacking out, then you'll wake back up right as the pipe shoots you back out into the spawn room. That's it sends you back to where you started. Honestly, didn't even really click with me until I've been recording this right now. It's a lot like how Mob of the Dead works. But that's the main map and setup process of Gorod Krovi. It's incredibly simple by Black Ops 3 standards, probably having the simplest setup in the game aside from the Giant and maybe Darius and Drak. But that's a good thing, as it makes Gorod one of the easiest maps in the game to pick up and just get right into. Again, very much unlike how Zetsubou no Shima was, since that map required a pretty big time commitment whenever you wanted to play it and actually get stuff done on that map. I feel like I'm going to be comparing Gorod to Zetsubou too much, but I can't stress how important it is to make those comparisons because, you know, that was a big factor in Gorod's reception, was that Zetsubou was the map that preceded it. Perks-wise, the map is more of the same 9 perks that were on Darius and Drak. Quick revives in Belinsky Square, Juggernauts in the department store, stamina-ups in the infirmary, double taps in the tank factory, mule kicks in the operations bunker, speed coals in the supply depot, and Deadshot, Widow's Wine, and Electric Cherry are in the Wonder Fizz machine. On paper, Gorod sounds incredibly simple, and, you know, to be fair, it is. But in practice, it's one of the most difficult zombies maps in the game, and probably is the most difficult map, not including Zombies Chronicles map. Mostly due to the layout. Most of Gorod Krovi is set inside a small, cramped building. It's also just one of the smallest maps in the whole game, so zombie spawns are practically constant with no real breather. There are some outdoor sections that are a bit more open, so you might think that it's best to train in these areas like out in front of the Dragon Command building. But this is where the dragon comes into play in normal gameplay to make your life more difficult. Basically any outdoor or even just open air section of the map, like in front of the Dragon Command, the different top floors of the department store, infirmary and armory, the spawn room, etc., can and will occasionally have a dragon swoop down and breathe fire on the entire area. This will coat the whole floor in fire for a little bit, doing damage to anyone who walks through it. Not enough damage to kill you instantly, or even really quickly for that matter, but definitely enough to kill you if you're already red screened. Plus, it blinds you when you're in it because, you know, you're on fire, I don't know what you expect. This is a really smart way to keep people from staying in the same open areas of the map for the entire time they play. Honestly, the dragons breathing fire is like a good implementation of the toxic zones from Exozombies' map Infection, also known as Burger Town. There, the toxic zones would activate occasionally and make entire large swaths of that map inaccessible due to the gas. But the problem there is that the gas would stick around for an entire round, and as the game went on, it would get to a point where all of the above ground portions of that map get gassed at the same time, forcing you into either the very cramped spawn room or the even more cramped sewers. It's a lose-lose situation. And for anyone who hasn't played Exozombies, firstly, you know, I envy you, but secondly, the sewers on Infection are probably, I know I already called them cramped, but legitimately the single most cramped, unbalanced, and just unfun area to play in on any zombies game I would ever, just with the enemy lineup that game has. It sucks so much. So the toxic zones on that map are one of the main features that just ruin the map for most people who play it, on top of a bunch of other things. Go watch CJ Santa's video on Infection if you haven't. He goes way more into depth on it than I'm going to here. The dragon breathing its fire is a much more well-balanced and just, you know, well-thought-out version of the same idea. For starters, the dragon fire only lasts around 30 seconds or so and not the entire round. Secondly, only one area will have a dragon breathe fire on it at a time. And thirdly, you'll get a fiery aura around the border of your screen before the dragon breathes fire in the area you're standing in, so that you have enough time to get out of there before the fire hits. This way the dragon's breathing fire falls more into the realm of mild annoyance, but definitely like intentionally annoying, instead of map-ruiningly frustrating like the toxic zones were on Infection. The dragon fire can also be mitigated by holding out the Guard of Fafnir, which is the map's new, dragon-themed shield. Like the other shields, you need to find 3 pieces to build it. The window can be found inside of the armory building, the glowy part can be found either in the department store, in the operations bunker, or in the little area connecting the two, and the main body can be found in the infirmary. And there's only one buildable table to worry about, and it's inside of the bunker, pretty much smack dab in the middle of the main part of the map. The shield has 2 main abilities aside from the main function of defending you. The first is an attack that shoots out a large green fireball that explodes and does a lot of damage to zombies when it makes contact with them. And the other ability is that when you hold out the shield, you'll take no damage from Dragon's Fire, allowing you to safely traverse through it. The Guard of Fafnir is just awesome. It's the fan favorite shield to come out of Black Ops 3 for a very good reason. It's got the best offensive power out of any of the shields in the game. It's also just, I think, the coolest looking, being built out of the bones of a dragon. That's just sick looking. The Guard of Fafnir isn't the only new weapon though. Gorod not only brings back the MX Garand and the HG-40 from Zetsubou, but it also introduces plenty of new guns of its own. a good mix of new ones, and a couple returning classics. As for new weapons, there are the NX Shadowclaws and the L4 Siege. The NX Shadowclaws are a set of dual-wield pistol crossbows that shoot bolts at zombies, and they're the only exclusive non-wonder weapon of the map. They are very bad, all things considered. The bolts do explode on contact, but the damage they do is really low. They fall off just super quickly. The only reason you'd possibly want them is because their pack-a-punched version, the Apollo's Fervor, can revive downed players if you shoot it at them like the upgraded Ballistic Knife from Black Ops 1 and 2. This can be good for the Easter egg boss fight, but aside from that, they're not worth spending a weapon slot on. Then there's the L4 Siege, which is much better. It's a rocket launcher that holds 4 rockets in its magazine and has an extremely fast fire rate for a rocket launcher. This thing rocks. Haha, get it? Like rock? It absolutely melts everything. Zombies, mini-bosses, special enemies, and the final bosses at the end of the Easter egg quest. Doubly so when you upgrade it to its pack-a-punch version, the L8 Circus. This doubles the ammo capacity to 8 rockets before needing to reload, boosts the damage a ton, and turns the explosions and the smoke trails red, which is really cool looking. Aside from the Hellion Salvo in Black Ops 4, the L4 Siege might legitimately be the best launcher in the game mode's history, and it's for sure my personal favorite. Then for returning classics, there are 2. Well, I guess like 1.5. First is the FFAR, but it's really just Black Ops 3's version of the FAMAS from Black Ops 1. The FFAR is a super solid assault rifle. It's got a super high ammo capacity, 30 rounds in the clip with 390 in the reserve, really decent damage, a high fire rate, and an ELO sight built in, since you can't customize it with weapon kits. Again, it's a really solid assault rifle. If I get it from the mystery box, it's a gun I'll usually hang on to for the rest of the game. When it's pack-a-punch, it turns into the Formless Fear, which boosts its mobility, damage, and triples its magazine size to 90, which pretty much turns it into like a mini LMG. When it's upgraded, it goes from solid to really good, and it's one of the best weapons on the map, hands down. Gorod Krovi also marked the long-awaited return of the PPSH-41, which hadn't been seen since Darius way back in World at War, almost 7 full years earlier. As for the gun itself from Gorod, it's really good. A lot of its stats are carried over directly from the World at War counterpart, minus the fire rate sadly. The gun doesn't shoot as fast in Black Ops 3 as it did in World at War, which is disappointing since the gun's blistering rate of fire is one of the main things that made it so iconic. Still though, the gun is a beast. It's an SMG, so it doesn't have the highest damage on its own, but Double Tap 2.0 fixes that right up. And it can put enough rounds down range to kill pretty much anything that moves thanks to its 71 round drum mag. And it just gets even better when you pack-a-punch it into the Grim Reaper. The magazine size goes from 71 to 115, with 690 rounds in reserve. Performance-wise, thanks to Double Tap 2.0, it outperforms the World at War version, but I still prefer the World at War version because of that one just having the way higher fire rate. It's like an extra 30% faster. Plus, I think that game's PPSH just sounds a lot better. The World at War version just sounds a lot cooler to me. I don't know how to describe it. I think it's maybe a bit sharper of a tone on the gunfire. Whatever, I'll play a little comparison.
The dragon approaches! Yeah, partner, I'm thirsty.
But stuff like that is just me nitpicking. The PPSH rocks on this map and definitely lives up to the reputation that the World at War counterpart built up over the years. It's a welcome addition to the arsenal, and it's one of the standout features of the map. With such awesome weapons as the L4 Siege and the PPSH, you're going to need some awesome new enemies. Nay, beasts, to slay with them. So, does Gorod Krovi deliver on that front? Kinda. It's got some mixed bag. The map has 4 special enemy types, not counting the bosses at the end of the Easter egg. The first of which are the Napalm Zombies, which are created when normal zombies run through the fire left behind by the dragons breathing fire onto a section of the map. They're the exact same as the Napalm Zombies from Transit and the other Green Run maps on Black Ops 2. The fire makes them a lot weaker and easier to kill, but when you do kill them, they will explode, damaging you if you're too close. They're super simple and not anywhere near as ever present as the Napalm Zombies on those Black Ops 2 Green Run maps, since the fire that creates them isn't a permanent thing. Honestly, the biggest purpose they have to serve on the map is their needed first step for getting the specialist weapon. Then there's Gorod's Hellhound equivalents, the Valkyrie drones, and the electrified zombies. You'll know they're around to starting because a dynamic blue fog will roll in over the city. Although later in the game, these guys will just start spawning in alongside normal zombies on normal rounds. The Valkyrie drones are bulky, flying drones that hover around and shoot electricity at players. They're actually kind of cool in how many different ways there are to destroy them. Obviously, you can just shoot them till they die, but that's boring. They have 3 arms which they'll use to do their main electrical attack, which, the lightning bolt, If you destroy all 3 of a drone's arms, the drone will start a self-destruct sequence where it'll start sparking and making popping noises, and then it'll fly towards you to blow itself up as close to you as it can. The drones also have a camera on the front of their chassis, which is how they see. If you destroy the camera, it'll charge your last known position that you were at when you destroyed the camera, since, you know, that's the last place I saw you at. It's kinda cool. They also have a big, large armor plate covering most of their front side. If you shoot the armor off, you'll expose their glowing red core, which you can shoot to destroy it easier, kind of like killing a Panzer Soldat. In Black Ops 3, they've got that power core you can shoot in their chest. Same kind of thing. I don't hate the Valkyrie drones as much as a lot of other people do, but they're definitely some of the worst special enemies in Black Ops 3 in my opinion. They're a lot more annoying to me than the parasites are, since they're a lot tankier and harder to kill than parasites. Still though, they're pretty easy to kill if you just target their weak spots, and at the very least make Gorod feel more unique, since they were never seen again after Gorod Krovi. Alongside the Valkyrie drones are the electrified zombies. These are created when zombies are hit by a drone's electrical attacks, as well as starting to spawn in alongside the drones on their dedicated rounds, starting from the second Valkyrie drone round onwards. They're pretty much identical to the napalm zombies, but they're just electricity themed instead of fire themed. They shock you when they hit you, and they'll explode when killed to stun/disorient you if you're too close. The last special enemy, and really the main special enemy on the map, is the Russian Mangler. They're kind of like the Russian version of the Panzer Soldat, until we got an actual Russian version of the Panzer Soldat in Cold War. They're an armored soldier with a pair of sickles attached to their left hand, presumably for mangling, and a large high-caliber energy cannon on their right hand that they'll use to shoot blasts of energy at you as their ranged attack. The Manglers are more of a mini-boss than a big boss. More on the level of like a Brutus as opposed to a Margwa. They're pretty easy to kill, with their head being an obvious weak spot, but you can also destroy their arm cannon by shooting at their shoulder, which will, remove their ranged attack, but also cause them to start running to close the distance with you, instead of their normal walking speed, which is a walk. If you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have said that the Mangler was a super cool and super unique boss zombie, and generally one of my favorite special enemies that Zombies has ever created. I used to think they're really cool. Nowadays, I just don't really care for them at all, because between Black Ops Cold War and Black Ops 6, they've become one of the most overused special enemy types in the mode's history. Between those 2 games, they were in 5 maps, plus Outbreak, Onslaught, and MWZ. And especially because of how common they were in Black Ops 6 when it first launched, I can go the rest of my life without seeing a Mangler ever again, and I really wouldn't mind. I mean, you've seen the videos from back when that game came out where there'd be like 18 of them walking single file? It was ridiculous. It was like, oops, all Manglers. And it sucks because that overuse has made them feel worse on Gorod to no fault of the map itself. On the bright side, out of all of their appearances, I feel like Gorod is the map where they fit the best. The ranged and melee combo is really good at putting pressure on players who aren't paying attention to them. They can almost zone you like it's a fighting game with their cannon and basically, cut off your routes and whatnot because that thing's got splash damage. So even if you dodge it, you can still take damage, so you gotta be careful. But they're weak enough that they never feel overpowered, which is important because the map will frequently spawn in multiple Manglers at once. You'll get like 2 or 3 of them at a time. Basically, they're really cool on Gorod and just in concept, but they've been so overused in the game mode in the past few years that it kind of spoils them on Gorod, and just in general for me. The enemy lineup on Gorod is pretty solid all around. It's lacking a huge powerhouse boss like the Margwas or the Thrashers, but that's probably for the best. Mostly thanks to the map's layout and just how much, tighter and close quarters it is than those other Black Ops 3 maps, but also because the map's wonder weapon is a lot less powerful than most of the other wonder weapons in the game. And that brings us to the GKZ-45 Mark III and the Raygun Mark III, which are dual-wielded together and just referred to together as the Raygun Mark III by most people. The Raygun Mark III, the weapon on the right, is a fully automatic raygun, and it's pretty similar to the Mark II, since it doesn't do splash damage and instead has a pretty high headshot multiplier. Then there's the GKZ-45, which is the left gun of the two. It shoots yellow balls of energy that travel on an arc, kind of like a grenade launcher. This gun doesn't really damage enemies on its own, it just slows down zombies. It's more of a utility tool when used on its own. The real killing power comes from when you shoot the GKZ projectile with a shot from the Raygun Mark III. This will create a small black hole that will damage and kill any zombies that walk into it for most of the early to mid to late rounds. The nice thing about the Raygun Mark III is that you can just get it from the mystery box. In fact, that's the only way to get it, and to upgrade it, you just need to put it in the Pack-a-Punch machine, which is a nice change of pace from the other maps in the game, and especially Zetsubo. That had a really lengthy quest to actually upgrade the Masamune, or the KT-4 into the Masamune, you get what I mean. When it's Pack-a-Punched, it becomes the Maelstrom of Eris. The ammo supply goes up, the raygun blasts turn red, and the damage goes up. The main problem with the Raygun Mark III is that since it's a raygun, it does not kill infinitely. Not even the black hole attack does infinite damage. It stops killing zombies in one shot during the 40s, and it just gets exponentially worse from there. Still though, that's good enough for a gun to perform for all but the best and sweatiest of high round players. Still though, the gun has a lot of utility even once it stops killing, since the yellow orbs from the GKZ-45 are really useful for just slowing down zombies, especially in such a tight and chaotic map. The Ray Gun Mark III is pretty solid as far as wonder weapons go, and I do enjoy it quite a bit, but objectively speaking, it's the worst wonder weapon in the game outside of maybe the Wonderwaff, but even the Wonderwaff kills forever, it just doesn't have much ammo. It does get a lot of points for the cool factor though. Akimbo ray guns are awesome, even though I think Alpha Omega's Akimbo Mark II ray guns are a cooler version of this idea, and also just they're more effective long term, because that game is a health cap. Another tool that Gorod gives the player is the Dragon Strike controller. It takes the right D-pad slot and it's basically an artillery strike that you can call in once a round. It acts like a G-strike from Origins. Zombies will be attracted to the green marker you place on the ground, and then a series of fireballs will fall from the sky to kill them. It's pretty solid for the early to mid rounds and is a really good get out of jail free card. It's also nice since you get a new one each round in addition to whenever you get a max ammo. To get the Dragon Strike, you need to interact with the console in the right room of the top floor of the Pack-a-Punch house. It has a glowing piece of element 115 and is surrounded by rings with keeper symbols on them, how Lovecraftian. Each player needs to interact with it and then the lockdown will begin. You need to survive 4 waves of zombies and manglers and Valkyries at the house. You're also given a max ammo by the side of the Pack-a-Punch machine that you can grab at any point during the lockdown because it will not expire until after the lockdown is finished. It's not very difficult, especially if you Pack-a-Punch before the lockdown or if you have the Ray Gun Mark III. Once you survive all 4 waves, you'll be able to grab the Dragon Strike controller from the console and then you can use the Dragon Strike for the rest of the game. Aside from all that, the only other major gameplay features on Gorod Krovi are the traps, of which there are a lot. For starters, there are 2 electric traps on the map, one at the front door of the department store leading into the spawn room, and another at the door into the operations bunker coming from the department store. For 1,000 points, these traps will create a barrier of lightning that will insta-kill any enemies that pass through it. The traps are in decent locations, not the best places to be on the map, and not really the places most people are spending a ton of time on the map, but they definitely can be useful. The bunker is a popular place for some strategies for people to camp down there, so that trap can come in handy. And the department store trap can be a good one to kill the zombies behind you when you get back from Pack-a-Punch. The rest of the traps on the map are more unique though, like the mounted MG42 trap. There's one of these inside of the Pack-a-Punch house at the front wall on the 2nd floor. For 1,000 points, you can use the MG42 like a mounted turret to just shoot at zombies. This is really cool, although it just makes me wish that the MG42 was just a normal weapon in the box so that you could use it whenever you wanted. This is a super situational trap and it's only really good in co-op when you can have other people defending you, since zombies can obviously come up to you behind you and kill you while you're using it. It is pretty useful though during the different lockdowns at the Pack-a-Punch house, so it has that going for it. Then there's the flinger traps, of which there are 3. One is in front of the Dragon Command building, and then at Pack-a-Punch there's one on the left side and on the right side of the outsides of the house. These basically work like the flinger from Call of the Dead or like a giant trample steam from Black Ops 2 zombies. Pay 1,000 points and the flinger platform will begin flinging, and it'll fling any zombies that walk onto it, killing them, as well as flinging any players that stand on top of the one at Dragon Command. They're not the most practical traps, at least not the Dragon Command one. The ones at Pack-a-Punch are better, since you can basically cover 2 of the main ways zombies get into the house if you activate both of them at the same time. They are, though, definitely some of the most fun traps. Seeing zombies get ragdolled across the map will never not be entertaining. Then there's the Gigant Finger Trap. The Gigants are the Russian versions of the giant robots that appear on the map. They're the Russian versions of the Reese robots from Origins and then the Giant and the Reisendrach. The broken arm of a Gigant acts as one of the pathways from the infirmary to the tank factory, and the arm's claw hand is still intact. For 1,500 points, the robot's 2 fingers will start to quickly pinch and unpinch, and this kills anything that passes through while allowing players to crawl or slide underneath the fingers if they want to pass by. There's also 2 Gigant Eye laser traps, one at the supply depot and one at the tank factory. For 1,500 points, these will make one of the Gigants outside of the map, either the one that fell onto the tank factory for the tank factory trap, or the one leaning on a tall building outside of the map for the supply depot trap, shoot a giant eye laser out of its visor like Cyclops from X-Men. And this will obviously kill any enemies that walk into it. The Gigant traps are my absolute favorites on the map, all 3 of them, but especially the 2 eye laser traps. The giant robots having eye lasers was something that was pretty unexpected that they added onto the Giant. Thinking retrospectively, that wasn't something that was ever alluded to on Origins. So it's awesome to finally be able to use it whenever you want outside of just a small Easter egg, even if it's just as a trap. And lastly, there's the elevator trap. This connects the top floors of the infirmary and the armory together. For 500 points, the elevators lower this bridge, which allows you to cut across super quickly. But then after a few seconds, the bridge raises back up and kills any zombies standing on it. Super simple, but this is a great shortcut that can save you a lot of time over the course of the whole game of Gorod. But yeah, that's just about everything Gorod has to offer gameplay-wise. As I've already said, this is a lot simpler of a map than most of the other maps in Black Ops 3, but that's not really a downside, since it's supposed to kind of harken back to the classic maps of World at War and Black Ops 1, with its wonder weapon in the box, a simple pack-a-punch process, etc. The map more than makes up for its simplicity though with its difficulty. Gorod can be a downright punishing map sometimes, at least for me. It's by far the most challenging map in the whole game, in my opinion. That being said, while I do really like Gorod, I don't think I click with it quite as much as a lot of other people do. Honestly, it's probably the Ray Gun Mark III. It's gotta be my least favorite wonder weapon in the game, and it kinda drags the rest of the experience down a bit of a notch for me. I still think of Gorod as a top tier map, mind you. That's not only because of how stacked the lineup of maps is in Black Ops 3, that, you know, a more middling map in that game is still a top tier zombies map overall, but it's also because of how good the other aspects of Gorod are to bring the rest of the experience up for me, such as Gorod Krovi takes place after Zetsubo no Shima, but more specifically after Primus make their pit stop to Richthofen's Alcatraz lab to retrieve the blood vials. After they get the vials, they make their way to the Agonia Fracture to kill Ultimus Nikolai. The Agonia Fracture is the absolute worst case scenario for the zombies universe. Okay, not really, the world isn't literally blown up, and there isn't some Lovecraftian monster in the sky threatening to devour the whole universe, but it's pretty bad. Due to the domino effect of fractures, starting with Ultimus Richthofen being killed in the Giant, each fracture ends up more messed up and distorted than the last. And in the Agonia Fracture, Group 935 and Division 9 succeed in mass producing their technology for the Axis powers to use in World War II. And as we see in the map, the Battle of Stalingrad is where most of their technology is being put to use. Most notably in the case of Gorod Krovi, they deployed the dragons that Division 9 hatched at the Zetsubo no Shima facility. One of the things that Group 935 does during the battle is installing Sophia at the Dragon Command building to oversee their operations in the city of Stalingrad. Sophia is an extremely minor character in the zombie storyline until Gorod Krovi. She was only ever mentioned a few times in World at War and Black Ops 1. She was Dr. Maxis' assistant and lover, and apparently is credited as a co-creator of the Monkey Bomb, but that's about as much info as she had on her until Black Ops 3 when she was given a much more major role. Now she's Sophia, the Strategic Operations Planning Heuristic Intelligence Analyzer, a giant spherical AI core that controls the 935 forces in Stalingrad. Although how she ended up like this wasn't revealed until Revelations, and is a pretty big plot point of that map, so I won't get into it here. You know, I guess you could say it's a revelation they saved for Revelations. That was a stupid joke. Group 935 releases Element 115 into the city, which turns many of the Russian soldiers into zombies. Sophia deploys the Valkyrie drones to look for any survivors and capture them for study, but there's still Russian resistance in the city. The Battle of Stalingrad rages on, far longer than it did in real life due to the Germans and Russians being locked in a constant stalemate. Eventually, Viktor Reznov, from the World at War and Black Ops campaigns, goes on a mission to steal 935 schematics for the Russians, but is killed soon after. The schematics are what allow the Russians to create things like the GKZ-45, the Manglers, the Manticore mech, and the Gigants, allowing them to fight back against the Germans. The battle continues raging on, and more people keep dying until the city becomes downright apocalyptic. And this continues until November 6th, 1945, the day that Primus arrived. Ultimus Nikolai is the only survivor left on the ground from either side. Anyone else is either dead or a zombie or a pilot flying a plane above the city. He's manning a Manticore mech suit, which is armed with tons of weapons, including the Ascalon Lance. It's a prototype weapon that shoots 115 enhanced harpoons that are the only thing that can penetrate the hides of Group 935's dragons. Primus arrive through a giant rift in the sky that opens up, leaving them in a free fall. They end up spotting the body of Peter McCain falling out of the rift too, and he has a parachute on him, so they all fly down to his body and use his parachute to slow their descent, getting buzzed by a dragon as they make their way down to the ground. They land, and Nikolai opens fire on them from his mech before the dragon swoops down, grabs Nikolai's mech, and throws it into a nearby building. Then it turns its attention to Primus, and they take cover in Berlinski Square, which is where the match begins. Primus make their way through the bombed out city and end up at Dragon Command. They power on the facility, which powers on Sophia, who is trapped in the city since there are no other humans left aside from Ultimus Nikolai. They need to enter a password to authorize themselves so they can work with Sophia, so they retrieve the master code cylinder and type in the password Kronos. This fully powers on Sophia and she starts to interact with Primus, and then she ends up agreeing to help them if they help her activate the Ascension Protocol. Primus completes a series of different miscellaneous tasks for Sophia. The most plot significant is leading Dr. Gersh to her, who makes his return to the mode after not appearing since Ascension in Black Ops 1. After Ascension, Gersh was left as basically a disembodied ball of energy or matter or whatever, and it's a form that he says he actually enjoys quite a bit, so it's not a bad deal for him. And after Ascension, he basically just drifts through the universe/the multiverse until he arrives at Gorod Krovi, which he recognizes as his home, but it's in flames. Whether he's talking about Stalingrad in particular or just Russia as a whole, it's a little unclear. But he recognizes Primus as the same people who helped him out in Ascension, just different versions of them. So he trusts them and they lead him to Sophia so she can extract information from them. This amounts to some kind of torture and leads to an agonizing death for Dr. Gersh. Kind of a sad way for a legacy character to go out like that.
Do not be concerned with the anomaly's fate. Information extraction is a mostly painless process.
But once all the tasks are done for Sophia, she gives Primus a replacement power core for Nikolai's mech suit, since his old core was damaged when the dragon threw him in the intro. They get Nikolai the new power core, then return to Sophia as she activates the Ascension Protocol. She detaches from her station and flies into the sky, saying that she's going to cross the multiverse to look for her beloved Maxes. This also reveals the way for Primus to get to the plaza where Nikolai is, so they go there to kill him. Before they kill Nikolai, Primus work with him to slay the dragon that's been pestering them the whole time they've been in Stalingrad. Nikolai uses the lance to weaken the dragon while Primus land the killing blows. After the dragon's dead, Primus tries to talk Nikolai into surrendering the same way Ultimus Takeo did, but this doesn't work and Ultimus Nikolai gets violent towards Primus. Primus destroys his mech so that the two Nikolais can have a heart-to-heart. Primus Nikolai says he wishes he didn't have to kill his other self, but that he knows and has lived through the same pain that his other self has, before chastising him for trying to bury that pain with his addiction to vodka. And we learn that Nikolai's wives, who he constantly jokes about in references in World at War and Black Ops 1, were all a drunken delusion and didn't exist, and that his real only wife was killed during an air raid. This is the pain that Ultimus Nikolai drinks to forget, and that has been haunting Primus Nikolai for the whole narrative up until this point. Ultimus Nikolai becomes enraged and says that some things are forgotten for a reason before shooting his Primus counterpart in the chest. Primus Nikolai then shoots Ultimus Nikolai point blank with a shotgun, killing him. Richthofen captures Ultimus Nikolai's soul and then says out loud to Maxis that their mission is done and all the souls are collected. And then he releases the souls, which fly up through the rift in the sky. All of this story stuff on Gorod Krovi is really well done. All the stuff with the two Nikolais in particular is phenomenal. The ending cutscene is amazing, the writing is great. I think this cutscene does the best job of illustrating just how different the Primus and Ultimus crews are from one another, despite them being the same people, just different versions. It's also probably the saddest ending cutscene in the game, aside from maybe Derives and Drak, or Zetsubo. They're all really good, but this definitely takes the cake in terms of sadness, and how emotionally moving it is. Gorod's is a lot more tragic, since after the two Nikolais talk, they can't come to an understanding with one another. At least Ultimus Nikolai can't come to an understanding. Speaking of, I also like how Black Ops 3 kind of escalates the amount of effort it takes to kill each Ultimus counterpart as the game's DLC season goes on. I don't know if that's the right way to word it, but I'll explain what I mean. On the Giant, Ultimus Richthofen was killed before the map even began. Ultimus Dempsey just had to have his life support turned off, so he had no say in what was happening to him. He was unconscious for that whole map. Ultimus Takeo willingly sacrifices himself after hearing what must be done, and then finally Ultimus Nikolai must be fought to the death to capture his soul. It keeps things interesting, keeps raising the stakes as the story unfolds, and makes Primus's journey really feel like an uphill battle. The map's intro cutscene is great too. It's definitely the best in the game aside from maybe Shadows of Evils. A huge part of that is the music, which I sadly cannot play since it's Ace of Spades by Motorhead. The music gives the cutscene way more energy than pretty much any of the other cutscenes in the game. It also helps that what's actually happening in the cutscene is the most exciting out of all the others up until this point. And Gorod Krovi's Agonia Fracture is, I think at least, the coolest of Black Ops 3's 3 fractures. It's the one that takes the most advantage of being a fracture and differentiates itself the most from the normal zombies timeline. And in terms of the characters, Primus is the most on the same page as they've ever been up until this point. They all know exactly what they're in Stalingrad to do. One of the big topics that gets brought up a lot is the blood vials. Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo all have dialogue where they ask Richthofen just what the blood vials are for and what happens next after they get Nikolai's soul. But But the three of them also act as sort of a spectrum of trust that they have in Richthofen. Takeo trusts Richthofen the most. By this point, he's determined to follow Richthofen's plan since he knows that Richthofen knows more than he's letting on compared to the rest of them. Especially after having to kill his other self in Zetsubo, he puts his trust in Richthofen. Plus, he legitimately believes that by following Richthofen's plan, they will set the universe right. Nikolai, on the other hand, still doesn't trust Richthofen at all since he's done nothing but lie to the rest of Primus to get them to do his bidding. If anything, being forced to kill his ultimate self makes Nikolai even less trusting of Richthofen and his plan than before just because of the negative headspace that he's in on Gorod Krovi. Since he's forced to dwell on his past regarding his wife and how that, pretty much ruined his life. This is a real downer of a map for Nikolai. And then Dempsey is somewhere in the middle, not as trusting as Takeo, but not as untrusting as Nikolai. This works since of all the members of Primus, Dempsey is the closest to an audience surrogate. So it's good that he's kind of a neutral party. It keeps Primus as a whole from leaning too far towards liking or not liking Richthofen, since at this point he's still a little shady, though not as much as he was on Der Eisendrache or Zetsubo. And then you have Sophia as one of the map's new characters. I get that she's technically not new, but she may as well be a totally new character since so little of her was known before Gorod Krovi. I mean, she wasn't even a voiced character before Gorod. She mostly only speaks during the quest, and we don't really learn too much about her until Revelations, but Gorod serves as a really good introduction for her. All of that story and character stuff is awesome, but Gorod also introduces one of the most controversial aspects of Black Ops 3's story, second only to the Lovecraftian stuff. Dr. Monty, played by the one and only Malcolm McDowell. Dr. Monty is basically the god of the COD Zombies universe, or at the very least, he's the god to the Shadow Man's Satan. He's been foreshadowed and alluded to in the previous maps, most notably through Dr. Monty's factory and Dr. Monty's gobblegum machines. But he makes his actual debut on Gorod Krovi in the form of a disembodied voice that speaks to Primus. He talks to everyone on round 15 and round 16, and then again to everyone except Richthofen after the main quest is completed.
I have been watching. I have seen each and every one of your misdeeds. I know who you are. Sounds ominous, doesn't it? Good, because it fucking is.
Plus, there's also a bunch of wisps where he goes into detail about how the Zombies universe really works, and the different versions of the main characters and whatnot. It's some pretty cool stuff that's worth a listen if you're deep into the Zombies lore, but the plot important stuff you'll hear during the normal game and Easter egg is that the universe is screwed up 6 ways to Sunday and Dr. Monty needs Primus to fix it. Also, that they're almost done with fixing it.
Anyway, it all makes sense when you get here. You'll see. Honestly, it's going to be fine. Oh, shit. I completely forgot to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Monty. Hello. So nice to see you all.
Many people find the introduction of Dr. Monty to be a jumping the shark moment for the franchise, since he's basically an omnipotent being who's used to explain away many gameplay mechanics like wall buys and power-ups. It's undoubtedly a big leap, even for a series as fantastical as COD Zombies. But I don't know, I don't mind the introduction of Dr. Monty. I think a lot of why I don't mind him is just Malcolm McDowell's performance. You don't hear a ton of it here on Gorod, he's much more present on Revelations, but every line of his is very memorable. There's a reason a ton of them have been turned into memes over the years. So yeah, the story and character work on Gorod Krovi is super strong in my opinion. I feel like it's the map that makes the most out of Black Ops 3's multiverse / butterfly effect thing it has going on. Ultimate's Nikolai's new backstory is very tragic and adds a lot more depth to what was previously an incredibly one-note character. I don't really have too much else to say about Gorod's story, it's just really good. But thankfully, I have a ton to say about Gorod's atmosphere and aesthetics and tone and whatnot, which is also really good. Where to start with Gorod's atmosphere? I think the best place to start is with the map's setting, the Battle of Stalingrad. As I've mentioned plenty of times before, I love when Zombies maps are set in real life locations, and Gorod is no exception. So I hope you're ready for your history lesson that I seem to have to include in each of these videos. The real life Battle of Stalingrad is the single deadliest battle ever fought by mankind. It lasted exactly 200 days, from July 17th, 1942 to February 2nd, 1943. Over those 200 days, an estimated 2 million people were killed. That's on average 10,000 people a day. Stalingrad was an incredibly important target for the Axis powers, as the city was pretty vital to the logistics of the Soviet Union in World War II. The city is located on the Volga River, which the Soviets used to move resources around their vast territory. If the Nazis could capture the city, they could cut off the land to the south of the city, which was rich in natural resources, namely oil, which the Nazis very much needed since they couldn't produce it on their own. If the Soviets lost the Battle of Stalingrad, they would have had to completely restructure their war machine. Couple this with the Nazi high commands take the city at all costs mindset, and the Soviet high commands hold the city at all costs mindset, and the stage was set for the deadliest battle of World War II. The battle was also one of the most brutal ever fought. The battle completely demolished the city, and as the battle went on, hand-to-hand combat and close-quarters combat became very commonplace. Since you would literally have German and Soviet troops fighting over single buildings, blocks, and in the sewers beneath the city. Very tight spaces. Buildings were fought over room by room with knives and pistols. Soldiers shot at each other through holes in the floors and the ceilings. Flamethrowers, tanks, and artillery were all super commonplace. Nearly every single horrible thing you can imagine from 20th century warfare, save for chemical gas, was used at the battle. And the losses on both sides were catastrophic. The Soviet death count at Stalingrad alone was around 3 times higher than the American death count for the entire war on every theater of combat. The Battle of Stalingrad is one of the most significant moments in European history, but for Americans like myself, the most exposure we get to the battle is through movies like Enemy at the Gates, or through video games like Call of Duty, which the battle has made numerous appearances in. It's been in Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty Vanguard, and probably most famously, Call of Duty World at War in the campaign mission Vendetta, which is probably my favorite mission in the whole franchise, but that's a topic for another video. Basically, the Battle of Stalingrad is by no means uncharted territory for the Call of Duty series. Gorod Krovi puts in a lot of legwork to make its version of the battle stand out compared to the real thing and the other versions that are depicted in the Call of Duty games. For starters, and maybe this is something I should have highlighted more in the story section, but Gorod is set on November 6th, 1945, meaning that the Agonia Fractures Battle of Stalingrad lasts at least 2.5 years longer than the real thing. And that means that the city has had 2.5 more years to be completely ravaged by the battle. If I had to pick one word to describe the mood of Gorod Krovi, it would be hellish. The map's predominant color palette consists of lots of reds and oranges, which contrast really well with the deep blues of the Giant and Horizon and then the greens and yellows of Zetsubo no Shima. You get a nice kind of RGB contrast between the 3 first DLC maps in Black Ops 3, and it helps them to really stand out amongst each other. The map is also always locked in a constant state of warfare. The only other map that even comes close in this regard is Origins, but this makes Origins look like a light skirmish. In the sky above the map, dragons and planes are locked in never-ending dogfights. Artillery lands outside the map constantly. In the outdoor sections of the map, like Belinsky Square, ash and ember rain from the sky like snow. I actually think that Belinsky Square is a really good microcosm of everything that Gorod Krovi is going for. You spawn inside of the fountain, which is a clear homage to the beginning of Vendetta from World at War. This fountain is actually based on the real-life Barmaly fountain, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but that's a very iconic statue from the real-life Stalingrad of children playing and dancing around a crocodile. And that fountain is one of the most iconic landmarks associated with the Battle of Stalingrad. But you spawn inside of the fountain, inside of Belinsky Square, and there are bodies just everywhere, like dozens of corpses in the spawn room alone. There are more dead bodies in this area than many other maps have in their entirities. But on one side of the spawn room you have a crashed plane, then there's a trench in the middle, and on the other side you have a pretty grisly sight, a dead dragon with its stomach blown wide open like a whale that exploded. And these two things on opposing sides of the spawn room kind of represents the whole monsters versus machines aspect of Gorod Krovi and its version of the Battle of Stalingrad that makes it unique. This juxtaposition even exists between the Valkyrie drones and the Manglers. The Valkyrie drones are robots, just through and through, and while the Manglers are cyborgs who are augmented with their arm cannons and other stuff, they're more like a Frankenstein's monster type of enemy. The Manglers honestly remind me a lot of the cyborg ninjas in Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4, but most notably Gray Fox / Frank Jaeger. Both the Manglers and Gray Fox show just how all-consuming war is in their respective games' universe. You aren't even allowed to die properly. Your body just gets strapped into a metal suit and forced to keep on fighting indefinitely. Man, I gotta do a Metal Gear Solid video someday. The zombies on Gorod Krovi have glowing red eyes, which not only gives them a demonic feel, but in the story indicates that there's some level of demonic influence over them by someone like the Shadow Man or the Warden of Alcatraz. But, you know, leaning more towards the Shadow Man and the Apothecans, and not the Warden of Alcatraz. I don't think he's involved with Gorod Krovi at all. I mean, shit, even the Valkyrie drones have glowing red eyes, and they're not even zombies. Everyone has the demon eyes on this map. And then there's also, you know, the literal dragons breathing fire and brimstone onto the map as you play. So, yeah, Gorod gives me very strong hell vibes. But aside from all that stuff, the map also has a pretty big retro sci-fi vibe going on with stuff like the Ray Gun Mark III and all the terminals around the map in places like the Operations Bunker and the Dragon Command building. Even the dragons themselves are a good mix of fantasy and sci-fi, since the way that Group 935 keeps them under control are these giant collars / harnesses that they use to remotely control them. And speaking of sci-fi, the Russian Gigants are so cool looking to me. You can tell that they're a derivative of the German Reese robots, but the Gigants are distinct enough that it doesn't just feel like a reused asset. The biggest difference is that the Gigant's head is shaped differently, with a boxier look than the more rounded look of the Reese robots. But there's also the fact that the iron crosses on the chest have been replaced with red stars, and the visors glow more reddish-orange color instead of the yellow of the standard Reese robot. They just look awesome, and sadly, not only did the Gigants never make another appearance in Zombies ever, we've never gotten to see one fully operational. I think even just having one walking through the map on a cycle like the Origins robots would be sick, even if it was just an aesthetic thing and didn't serve a gameplay purpose. Ideally, we get to see one fight a dragon, and more than likely lose, since it's mentioned in some of the map's radios by Sophia that the Gigants are very weak against the dragons. They weren't built to fight dragons. That's why the only Gigants on the map are destroyed and out of commission. That might be veering a bit too far into fan service territory, but COD Zombies has never been a stranger to fan service, especially not nowadays. That's pretty much 80% of what the Dark Aether story has been so far in the past 6 years. It's just fan service and callbacks that nostalgia baits people into sticking around for one more map. Then there's the Valkyrie drones, and I'm pretty positive that they were inspired by the Sentinels in The Matrix, with their glowing red eyes and their claw arms, and this is backed up by the fact that during the map's early development, the Valkyries were referred to as Sentinel drones. They look very threatening, and while they seem very futuristic for the time, they still look like something feasibly made with technology from the mid-20th century. Like, the number of antennas sticking out of the back of them so that they can receive their orders is a little ridiculous looking. This makes them very reminiscent of early Soviet satellites like Sputnik 1 and Luna 1, which very well may be intentional, but comes off as a bit odd since the Valkyrie drones are German. You know, they're made by Group 935 and not the Soviets. If the giant iron cross painted on its face armor didn't make that obvious enough. Still though, the drones look very sleek and are very memorable to me. Then there's the normal zombies. They're not so much sci-fi since they're the Soviet soldiers who Group 935 exposed to Element 115, but they still look very cool, a lot like the zombies on Origins. There's a really good selection of zombie models on the map, and they've got a bunch of different accessories that they can wear. You'll see officers, guys with helmets, guys with Ushankas, shirtless guys. Really shows that nobody was safe from Group 935 and their horrible war tactics, and just hammers home how scary 935 would be in the main timeline if they ever fully achieved their goal as a faction. A small detail that I really love on the map are all the propaganda posters and billboards that are dotted around the city. They're all in the style of socialist realism, like most propaganda from the Stalin-era Soviet Union. It's a very distinct look, and having these dotted around the map in places like Dragon Command and on the department store helps to sell this map as taking place in that time period. There's also several relief sculptures around the map that look quite cool too. There's two main ones, an intact one directly across the street from the Dragon Command, and a mostly destroyed one on the side of the tank factory that you can see from the street level path into the tank factory from the infirmary. Just another very common aspect of Soviet architecture and propaganda that's very cool to see represented here in Gorod Krovi. And not to backtrack a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about the department store, since that's based on a real-life building. The Univermag department store, which is significant because it was the last holdout of the Germans in Stalingrad and the place where they surrendered at. The Pack-a-Punch house is also based on a real building. It's modeled after Pavlov's house, which is a house where a small group of Russian soldiers held out for 2 months against relentless German attacks. And they managed to survive and hold the building until their reinforcements arrived. It's also a reused asset. It's the same house as the house in Sarah Hall's memory in the campaign where you survive against a bunch of zombies. Is the blatant asset reused lazy? Undoubtedly. Is it also cool how they were able to make it work in a way that let them include another iconic fixture of the Battle of Stalingrad in Gorod Krovi? Absolutely. And speaking of Pack-a-Punch, Dragonfire. Comes in 5 colors: orange, red, green, purple, and blue. Okay, Technically, the green version is called Atomic Fire, and the purple one is called Arcane Fire, since those two were available as limited time supply drop items in multiplayer, but I'll just refer to them all as Dragon Fire for simplicity's sake. The camo makes your gun look like it's covered in either patches of dragon scales or the cooled crust layer that sits at the top of magma. Honestly, I can't tell which of the two it's supposed to be. And also patches of glowing hot magma, and the magma color is the part of the camo that changes between different color variants. The orange variant's whatever, it's definitely my least favorite, but it still looks really good. As friend of the channel Mom Tasty mentioned when we were getting footage for my video, the orange just feels the least special since it's a free skin that everyone gets in the multiplayer nowadays. I mean, you could put this on any weapon kit gun you want, you don't even have to play Gorod Krovi to see this camo. The red version's better, but it's still not my favorite. It's very similar to the orange, but I'll take the red over the orange any day of the week. But the green, blue, and purple versions of the camo are just gorgeous looking. I just can't pick a favorite. Okay, the blue's my favorite, but the green and purple are really good as well. The animation on the magma parts of the camo are subtle, but not super subtle. These Dragonfire camos are super simple, especially compared to some of the color vomit that Pack-a-Punch camos are in Black Ops 6. I mean, a lot of those camos look horrible. Dragonfire is again just a simple camo that is perfected. Even the colors I don't like as much still look very clean. I just don't like those colors as much with this camo. I think the only Pack-a-Punch camos in the game that come close to this are the Gemstone camos on Horizon Rock, and maybe one or two of the Pack-a-Punch camos on Revelations, but I'm not going to talk about that until the next segment of the Retrospective. And lastly, I'd like to talk about the music of Gorod Krovi. Aside from Shadows of Evil, Gorod has the most distinct musical identity out of any Black Ops 3 map, period. It's got a very militaristic feel. There's a ton of snare drum rolls, which can be heard throughout many of the tracks that were composed for the map. Plus there's horns, lots of heavy percussions, and choirs as well. This can all be heard in many of the round change tracks for the map, which you'll have been hearing for my transitions between segments of the Retrospective, like I would use the other round change music for the other maps in their segments of the Retrospective. But I think the song that highlights this best is Blood of Stalingrad, which is a nearly 4-minute long song that plays in and around the department store and very well encapsulates the musical identity of the map. There's also City of Blood, which literally just translates to Gorod Krovi in Russian, but this song plays in the operations bunker and outdoor sections of the map. For the most part, it's very atmospheric and kind of just blends into the background, since it's mostly horns and some percussion that are drawn out. But there's one part of the song that really stands out and is super recognizable and iconic. I'll play it for you right now. Of all the different tracks on Gorod Krovi, this feels like the one that you'll be hearing the most frequently, at least in my experience. But the soundtracks also occasionally implement more techie sounding elements, like when a Valkyrie drone round is starting or ending. But the Dragon Command theme also implements some of these sounds, probably since Sophia resides there and she's a giant computer, so having some more industrial and techie sounds for her section of the map works very well. The map also has a handful of extremely bombastic tracks. The first set that come to mind for me are the 3 different versions of Dragon's Flight, which is the song that plays when you're taking the dragon to Pack-a-Punch. These are some of the most memorable pieces of music out of any Black Ops 3 map, and really out of any Zombies map ever. They help to make the dragon cutscenes feel as epic as they really should feel. I'm just gonna play my favorite one for you, but it's so good. Especially love the way how this version resolves at the end. Again, it's so well composed.
Leaving area.
The lockdown at Pack-a-Punch also has really good music with some of those same techie beeps and boops and a catchy main riff. It really helps to set the mood for you to defend the building against the waves of enemies. Then there's the boss fight music, 2 songs to be exact. The dragon boss fight's theme is called Hellfire, and it sounds amazing. It's got all the elements that make Gorod's music stand out, the snares, the strings, and the choir. And it makes the dragon fight feel just very climactic, which it is, because scale-wise, this is the biggest boss fight Black Ops 3 ever got. I'll get more into that when I talk about Revelations, but this track is really good. It's at least on par with, if not a bit better than Legendary, the Corrupted Keeper's theme from Drives and Drop. And then there's Ultimus Nikolai's theme, which is actually a piece of diegetic music, which is music that is actually being played in whatever movie or video game you're watching or playing, so that the actual characters can hear it. But Nikolai plays the Soviet national anthem through the speakers of his mech when you're fighting him, which is probably meant to be goofy, but I do find it to be pretty somber in a way. He's the last man standing in a battle that has ravaged his homeland, and he's blasting the anthem of an empire which is almost certainly doomed in this fracture. It's actually pretty metal, and goes hard as one of his last FUs to the Primus crew as he turns on them and, tries to kill them.
You will be father for my minigun! Calm yourself, Russian. You must listen. We are your allies. I will never succumb. Steadfastly refuse to accept death's embrace. Before long, I know Shu may be on our foot.
And then lastly, there's Love and War, which is a track that plays during the ending cutscene, which is also phenomenal. It starts with piano and choir during the beginning of the cutscene when the Nikolais are speaking, and it fits the somber subject matter very well.
You think you will kill me now? I am sorry, Nikolai. I wish there was another way. But know this, in my heart, I share the same pain as you.
But then the music cuts out, and we're left with just Nikolai talking as he reveals the truth about what happened to his wife and how she died.
Memory. You loved and you lost. Everything else has been delusional fantasy that distance you from painful truth. You know what I speak of. You remember, before the bombs fell, before she was taken from us.
And then the music slowly builds back up as Ultimus Nikolai's rage builds towards Primus Nikolai and reaches a climax when Nikolai shoots at Primus Nikolai.
Some things are forgotten for a reason!
And then the ending of the cutscene brings back the same motif that's been used in Horizon and Zetsubou no Shima when the souls of Dempsey and Takeo were captured, signifying that Primus's mission here is over and they're ready to go on and finish their quest.
It is done. The souls have been collected, Maxis. We'll see you soon.
I think I might prefer Zetsubou's soundtrack overall, just because I like the very Japanese feel and instrumentation of it, and that might sound weebish, but it's true. But Gorod definitely still takes third place. Obviously, first place is Shadows of Evil. Nothing tops Shadows of Evil soundtrack. The music of Gorod Krovi is amazing and contributes so much to the map's oppressive tone and bombastic feel. It's not as memorable as the music on Shadows of Evil, but really, what other Zombies map has music as iconic as Shadows is? I don't think Gorod Krovi would hit anywhere near as much as it does without the music, so hats off to Brian Toohey. He does a great job with these soundtracks, and I feel like he often goes underappreciated compared to Kevin Sherwood. The whole map's theming is just top-notch, super well done. I just wish I could say the same thing about the map's main Easter egg quest. Gorod Krovi has, all in all, some of the best Easter eggs out of any Black Ops 3 map. Sadly, the map's main quest, Love and War, just isn't one of them. The first step of the quest is very simple. Just turn on the power in order to turn on Sophia, and then you gotta go unlock the Pack-a-Punch building. Then you need to go to the hatchery, which is another name for the Pack-a-Punch house, but specifically the basement floor of the Pack-a-Punch house is the hatchery. In the basement, you'll find a generator next to these big incubators. Kill a Valkyrie drone next to the generator to power it on, then head back to the main map. There are 6 valves all around the map, one at each of the main areas of the main city chunk of the map, and each valve has 3 different settings labeled 1, 2, and 3. Run and check each valve and you'll find one with a pink code cylinder stuck inside of it. Also during this step, the light bulbs on each valve will be lit up. 5 of them will be blue and 1 will be green. The green valve is your starting point, and the valve with the cylinder is your end point. You need to change the settings on each valve to route the airflow to the endpoint while passing through each of the valves along the way. Each setting on a valve sends air to a different valve. You need to make a complete circuit with enough air pressure to dislodge the code cylinder. You also have 5 minutes to complete this before the generator at the hatchery shuts off, then you have to burn around before you can go back and turn it back on again and get 5 more minutes to continue working. That is a lot to have to figure out on the fly, so for this step it's best just to go to Mr. Waffle Waffle's website, chronorium.com, since it has a solver for the valve step, where you just plug in which valve has the green light and which one has the code cylinder. Then it'll show you what you need to set each of the 6 valves to, or each of the 5, because you don't change the code cylinder valve at all, but what you have to set the other 5 valves to in order to complete the step. Once you do so, go to the valve that had the code cylinder, and you'll find that the cylinder is dislodged and you can grab it. Then go to Sophia and place the code cylinder into her terminal, and then a panel will open up to reveal a series of wheels with letters on them. This is where you must enter the password to fully activate Sophia. The password is Kronos with a K, and for the longest time I was under the impression that it was just an Incredibles reference, since that's what I'd heard repeated a ton online, and it was just kind of accepted that that's probably where they got Kronos from. It was only when watching Evan F. 1997's retrospective on Gorod Krovi when he mentioned that Kronos is actually referenced to Project Kronos, which was a rumored codename of the Die Glocke project in World War II. And Die Glocke is one of the conspiracies that helped form the foundation of the whole COD Zombies mythos back in World at War. I mean, the teleporters in Doris are supposed to be Die Glocke, and the DG in Wonderwaffe DG2 stands for Die Glocke. So having the password for Sophia be that deep cut of a reference is pretty cool, but the only problem is that the only hint on the map towards the password is a piece of paper on the main desk in Dragon Command. If you look at it with a sniper rifle, the writing becomes legible, and they mention that only people familiar with the Die Glocke research project would know the password. But they don't mention Kronos by name. Obviously this step wasn't solved the intended way, it was just brute force until Kronos was, tried and was found out to be the password. And just a side note, but I highly recommend Evan F. 1997's Black Ops 3 Retrospective series. He mostly focuses on the Easter egg hunts for each respective map in the game, and it's super fascinating to have these documentaries basically, these videos chronicling the efforts the community went through to solve these quests. Because it's something that most people probably don't think about much once the actual quest is solved, just how much work goes into cracking these in the week or a couple days after launch. Seriously, go check out his videos if that interests you at all. I highly recommend them, they're super well made. But once you enter the code, Sophia has a little chat with Primus and agrees to help them find a replacement power core for Ultimus Nikolai's mech if they help her activate the Ascension Protocol, stage 1 of which requires Primus to get 6 trophies and place them at the big map screen in Dragon Command. And the 6 trophies are the Dr. Gersh Trophy. This is the easiest one, since the trophy is being held by the rightmost man in the relief right across the street from Dragon Command. It's a trophy of Dr. Gersh's ethereal form, and all you have to do is shoot it out of the relief's hand. The trophy will tumble down to street level, and you can pick it up. The Group 935 Trophy. When taking the sewers back to spawn from the hatchery, you can spot a glowing red light on top of the sewage pipe that you're flowing through. Shoot the light with a bullet weapon and it will turn green. This will cause the toilet to back up at the back of the hatchery, and the trophy of the Group 935 logo will be in the toilet for you to grab, which is now overflowing with poo water. Gross. The Bomb Trophy. Right in front of the supply depot and to the left is a flooded crater. Simply use your Dragon Strike to call a Dragon Strike into the crater. Once the artillery ends, the Bomb Trophy will rise up out of the crater for you to grab. The Mangler Trophy. This one is in a safe on the floor of the supply depot, and you just have to use the Gigant Eye Trap. When you use the trap for the first time, the laser will cause the safe to explode open and you can go in and grab the trophy. The Valkyrie Drone Trophy. In the tank factory is a pipe that runs along the wall, and there's an opening in the pipe on the ground floor of the factory. Use your Dragon Shield to shoot a fireball into the pipe. This will cause the Valkyrie Drone statue to pop out of another opening in the pipe and onto the floor of the room with the blackboard in it. It sounds more complicated than it actually is. If you watch the footage, you'll see it's super simple. And the last trophy is the Groff Module Trophy, which is the hardest trophy to get since it requires the Specialist Weapon, so I guess it's about time I get into that. To begin the quest for the Specialist Weapon, you must first acquire a Dragon's Egg. The egg is right above the entrance to the sewer that you use to leave the hatchery. Shoot the egg down, it'll roll down to your level, and you can pick it up. Then take the egg back to the main map and place it into a nest at either Dragon Command, Walensky Square, the Infirmary, or the Supply Depot. Wait for the dragon to breathe fire onto the egg, or I've heard you can also just use a Dragon Strike on the egg, though I tried that for myself and it didn't work. But you just need to heat up the egg. You know, let the dragon breathe fire on it, that's the safest bet, and then you need to wait a few rounds for the egg to cool off. Once the egg cools off, you'll need to do 3 challenges to progress the Specialist Weapon quest. First, you need to kill napalm zombies, which is easy enough. The second one is the most difficult since you need penetration multi-kills. But you can use something like the Draken or the Locust, or even just wait for an insta-kill to make this easy. The MG42 at Pack-a-Punch even works for this. There's a couple glitches with these challenges for the Dragon Egg, but yeah, you can use the MG42 trap at Pack-a-Punch to get your penetration kills, so that counts too if you want to use that. And lastly, you need melee kills, but shield kills count, even kills with the fireball attack. I'm assuming just because you've got the shield out, it counts everything as melee, even the actual fireball, since it's tied to the shield. So that one's super easy, it trivializes that challenge. Then you take the egg back to the hatchery and place it in an incubator in the basement. This causes a lockdown where you fill the egg with souls. Once the egg is filled, wait 2 rounds for it to cool, head back to the spawn room and interact with the bottom metal on your challenge tombstone. This will make a skeleton's hand rise out of the grave and it'll be holding the Specialist Weapon, the Gauntlet of Siegfried. This thing is awesome. It's an Element 115 enhanced glove, but it also acts more like a falconry gauntlet, since the weapon also includes the dragon whelp that you hatched from the egg at the incubator. The weapon has 4 different attacks. The simplest is the standard melee, which makes the whelp lunge forward to bite, and this does a bit more damage than a Bowie knife, nothing too crazy though. Up next is using the whelp's fire breath as a flamethrower, and this is just a reskin of the purifier for multiplayer, but I don't care, it goes so hard. Plus the fire is green to match the Dragon Shield and Dragon Strike's fire. This flamethrower melts zombies and is kind of like using the Skull of Non-Stop way where you can just hold down the trigger and watch zombies die. Although it is more dangerous, since the fire doesn't lift up zombies and immobilize them like the skull does, so you can still get swarmed and killed by zombies while using this attack. Then there's the third attack, where you send out the whelp to fly around and kill zombies as well as pick up power-ups for you. It's like sending out the Keeper Sword on Shadows of Evil to kill zombies for you, since you can switch to your other weapons and use those while the whelp still stays deployed for the remainder of the duration of the gauntlet. But you don't have to put the gauntlet away when you deploy the whelp, since having the whelp off the gauntlet lets you use the gauntlet freely, and blue glowing 115 canisters will emerge, allowing you to do an element 115 enhanced punch. This punch does infinite damage and lunges you way forward so you can punch right through a whole horde of zombies. This is the most effective way to use the gauntlet. Deploy the whelp and use the melee attack. And boy, does it feel really good to use. It's probably the most powerful feeling specialist weapon, even if objectively the Skull of Non-Stop Way kind of wipes the floor with all the other ones. That one's just kind of busted. But once you get the Gauntlet of Siegfried, you can use the 115 powered punch to punch open the safe in the operations bunker and grab the Groff module trophy. Place all 6 trophies together at the main map terminal, and Sophia will talk again and Ascension Protocol Phase 2 will begin. And you can get these trophies at any time. You don't have to start getting them only once you complete the Valve step, so it's best to try and get all the trophies collected while doing your setup so you can move ahead to the next phase of the Easter egg as quickly as possible. The next part of the quest consists of doing a series of challenges all correlating to the different trophies you did for Sophia, and you can get them in any order. There's the Gersh challenge. Dr. Gersh will spawn onto the map, and Sophia refers to him as an anomaly you need to go hunt down. He's a glowing golden/yellow ball of energy, and you need to shoot him, which the Ray Gun Mark III works best for this since it one-shots him. He'll turn purple and talk for a bit before starting to move again. Shoot him a second time, he'll talk again and then move, and then the third time you shoot him, he'll talk and then hit the Dragon Command to be interrogated by Sophia, which leads to his untimely death. The Groff Pod challenge. This is the easiest one and is a real breather compared to the other challenges. A Groff drop pod will drop outside the map at either the Dragon Command, Supply Depot, or Tank Factory. You need to fill it up with souls while zombies attack it outside of the map until it opens up. Then deploy your whelp. The whelp will fly down and grab a data storage unit from the drop pod and place it down for you to pick up. Bring the unit back to Sophia and place it into her terminal, and the challenge will be completed. The Valkyrie Drone Challenge. This will spawn a docile, green-eyed, and armless Valkyrie drone outside of the map at Belinsky Square. You need to go to the square and the drone will fly into the map. Then you need to escort the drone back to Dragon Command so that Sophia can extract data from it, or whatever. The problem is that the drone moves very slowly and only when you're very close to it, making it easy to be swarmed by zombies while you're escorting the drone. The other problem is that the drone only has 1 health point, so it's very easy to accidentally kill, especially if it gets caught in crossfire or if your Widow's Wine grenades go off near it. The best way to beat this challenge is to throw out all of your Widow's Wine grenades and then just spam the left trigger ability with the Ray Gun Mark III to slow all the attacking zombies to a crawl. If you have enough ammo for the ray gun, you can pretty much trivialize this challenge, although Gobblegums can help out a ton too. The Mangler Challenge. This will spawn in a green-eyed Mangler at either the Tank Factory, the department store, or the Supply Depot. Much like the Valkyrie drone, you need to lead the Mangler back to Dragon Command for Sophia. The problem is that the Mangler is hostile and will aggro to you, to follow you, but once you break line of sight, he de-aggroes and will start wandering back off. The best strategy is to either use Undead Man Walking to slow everything down for this challenge, or to shoot the Mangler's arm cannon off to get him to switch to his sickle mode where he'll sprint after you, making the step go by even a little bit faster. This is definitely the most annoying challenge to me, although not the most difficult. That honor goes to the Bomb Step. This is one of the most dreaded and infamous Easter egg steps in any zombies game ever. Basically, a self-destruct sequence will begin and you'll have to disarm a series of 6 bombs placed around the main chunk of the map, one at each of the main 6 buildings. The map screen will light up the different buildings in a random order, and you'll have 2 minutes to disarm the bombs all in that order. If you take too long to disarm the wrong bomb, any non-disarmed bombs will explode, and these explosions kill pretty much anyone not at the hatchery or Belinsky Square. The radius is crazy on them. Everyone's got a different strategy for this step. Some people will record their screen and play the video back, but personally, I assign a number to each building. So Dragon Command is 1, Tank Factory is 2, etc. And I'll punch those numbers into the calculator app on my phone in the order that they pop up. On solo, it's a ton easier since you can actually just pause your game after seeing the order so you can really commit it to memory, but really the only advice I can give you is to take your time and stay calm. 90% of the time this step has failed because someone jumps the gun and disarms a bomb before the previous one is fully disarmed, or you all get nervous and forget what the order was. Just be patient with this challenge and it's not all that bad.
Security systems disabled. Self-destruct sequence terminated. Thank you for preventing our destruction. You should be pleased.
The final challenge will always be the Group 935 challenge. Sophia will give you a key card that you take to the hatchery. Across from the toilet on the ground floor is a terminal. Place the key card into it and it'll begin a download. This starts another lockdown at the hatchery, but only Manglers will spawn. This challenge is a lot of fun and really not too difficult. I especially like how a dynamic fog rolls in around the house to make it feel more distinct from the other lockdowns that you can do at the hatchery. This challenge really feels like a reward for making it to the home stretch of the Easter egg, because once the download finishes and you take the data back to Sophia, you're pretty much done with the quest. After all the challenges are finished, Sophia will give you the replacement power core for Nikolai's Manticore mech. Go to Blinsky Square, deploy your whelp when you're as close to the building that Nikolai is stuck in as possible, and the whelp will fly him the power core. Now you can head back to Sophia and she'll activate the Ascension Protocol. She'll free herself from her computers and fly up into the sky, leaving the map forever. Her big terminals will slide back and reveal a sewer grate on the floor. Everyone in your game has to stand on the grate and it will open, dropping you into the sewer and whisking you away to the boss fight arena. There's a little fortification in the middle of the arena and a button inside of that. Whenever you're ready for the final fight, press the button. Nikolai will escape the building he's been stuck in with his fully operational Manticore mech. You'll also be attacked by the dragon that's been breathing fire onto the map for the whole game, and you'll start fighting it with Nikolai. The dragon will fly around the boss fight arena and shoot fireballs at you from the sky, then he'll perch on the different buildings surrounding the plaza and breathe fire, which will cover nearly the whole area, save for the very outer perimeter and the trenches in the corners. Also, you're being attacked by zombies and manglers the whole time, so there's a lot going on in this fight. Nikolai will shoot his Ascalon lance to the dragon, and this will create a weak spot for you to shoot. Lay into the weak spot with the Ray Gun Mark III, since this thing melts the dragon, and just stay out of the fire and don't get surrounded by zombies, and this part should go by pretty easily. The dragon has 3 weak spots that Nikolai will expose, one on each side and then one on its neck. Once you destroy the neck weak spot, the dragon will die, it'll explode in a very dramatic fashion, and then you'll get a mid-match cutscene where your player character tries to talk Nikolai down. There's a different version of this for each member of Primus. Of course, they're unsuccessful, and this leads into stage 2 of the boss fight, which is Nikolai with his Manticore mech. Nikolai's mech has a stacked arsenal. He has a Gatling gun, which can melt you because it's a Gatling gun. The Ascalon lance, which can stun you like a shock charge from Black Ops 2. You know, it's electrical, so that'll stun you, make you easier to kill. He'll deploy wraps for multiplayer from his mech and shoot missiles from his mech. It's a lot, especially if you're playing in solo. This is definitely the tougher of the 2 stages of the boss fight. To defeat Nikolai, you need to destroy 5 glowing weak spots on his mech. The 2 vents on the front by the cockpit window, the 2 vents on the shoulders that reveal themselves when he uses his missiles or his wraps, and then the final main power core that drops out of the Manticore's crotch when all 4 other weak spots are destroyed. The Ray Gun Mark III melts his weak spots. The problem is that Nikolai can kill you pretty much instantly if you get hit by multiple of his attacks at once. Plus, you still have zombies, manglers, and now Valkyrie drones to deal with. Gobblegums are a lifesaver for this phase, but you can do it without them, obviously. I can't say that I've ever beaten this boss fight solo or without Gobblegums, but I know it can be done. It helps that more of the arena opens up for this stage, so you can now go into the buildings around the plaza for more cover from his attacks, so utilize that extra space. Once you destroy the power core of Nikolai's mech, the cutscene will begin and you'll have finished the quest. Your reward is a perkaholic, but the perk slots are all permanent, so you can get all 9 perks back simply by using the Wonder Fizz. And if you beat the quest in under an hour and a half, the perks themselves are permanent, and still in solo you can get an infinite supply of quick revives just by buying extras from the Wonder Fizz, so very nice rewards. Also, the dragon who's been breathing fire the whole game is dead. That's the dragon you fought in the boss fight, so you don't have to worry about him breathing fire into the open areas of the map, letting you more freely utilize all the space on the map, which is another really nice benefit for doing the quest. Love and War is a very mixed bag of an Easter egg quest, and personally, I'm just not a big fan of it. I think the boss fight is the best in the game, hands down, but I'm not a big fan of most of the steps leading up to the boss fight. For starters, the valve step is just straight bullshit. Yeah, there is technically a way you can figure it out on your own, but it's just way too obtuse of a step for that, even when you know how the step works. This isn't like some Chronos being the password for Sophia type thing, where it took a while to figure out, but once the code is cracked, that step is solved forever. The valve step is different every game, and the number of different combinations you'd have to commit to memory is too much to ask, even for a zombies Easter egg quest. This would all be fixed if instead of 1, 2, and 3 being stamped onto the valves, it would have just had the actual locations that the valves send air to instead. That way the step would become more of just a normal logic problem, where each valve can send air to one of 3 places, and you need to get the current to get from the green light valve to the code cylinder while passing through all the valves and not repeating itself. That's how the mechanics of the step work as is, but having each valve just say 1, 2, and 3 is so stupid, because then to complete the step as intended, you need to learn which 3 places each valve can route air to, which could only be done with hours and hours of trial and error. And on top of this, there's the 5-minute time limit that you have to do this with each round before the hatchery generator turns back off. 5 minutes, that's plenty of time when you're using chronicles.com, but if you're trying to solve this on your own, that's nothing. The amount of running back and forth you have to do just to figure out what works, the step sucks. Thankfully, you can just use chronicles.com to trivialize it, but any Easter egg step where you're practically required to use an outside resource to cheat is objectively badly designed. I'm sorry. Getting trophies for Sophia is fun though, and I really like that you can get started on these ASAP instead of making them only obtainable after turning on Sophia. It makes sure that you've got a lot to do while playing through the initial setup process of the map. As for the actual middle chunk of the quest, where you're doing all these challenges, I'm not crazy about that either. It's objectively a lot better designed than the Valve step, but it's also a lot more annoying since I can't just use Penultimate.com to skip them all. In all seriousness though, I'm not a fan of when a substantial portion of a zombie's Easter egg is taken up by just doing challenges. The other big example that comes to mind for me is Blood of the Dead's main quest, because it ends up feeling like padding. And there's also certain challenges that I dread doing. On Gorod, it's the Valkyrie and Mangler challenges. These two challenges are very similar, and it just makes me wonder why they didn't just combine them into one. There's no reason we couldn't just have had 5 challenges to do instead of 6. But these challenges can be a real slog to get through. The Valkyrie challenge is super boring because of how slow the drone is, and the Mangler challenge is frustrating because of how easy it is for the Mangler to lose interest in you and wander off. I seriously don't know whose idea it was at Treyarch to include 2 escort quests in a zombies map in the year of our Lord 2016. The Gersh challenge can be really annoying too, since Gersh is very hard to pin down on the map, especially if you're just playing solo. It's not as bad as the Mangler and Valkyrie ones, especially since it involves a pre-established character, but it still feels like busy work. The other 3 challenges though, I kinda like. I definitely do dread the bomb set, but in the way that Treyarch probably intended you to dread it. But like I said earlier, if you just stay calm and take your time, like I'd assume you have to when you're defusing a real-life bomb, you can come out the other side pretty much unscathed with not too much trouble. The bomb step is really more of a mental thing than anything else. The Graph Module challenge is kind of just a nothing burger challenge. It's nice that it has basically no challenge to it at all, but it also doesn't leave much impact on me other than it's mostly nice because it's the easiest of the 6 challenges. What you're actually doing during the Graph Pod challenge is pretty boring. And then the Lockdown challenge with the hatchery is legitimately really fun. It's my favorite of the 6 and works as a great way to cap off the challenge portion of the quest, which in my experience usually takes up around half or more of the quest time-wise. And then the boss fight is great, but sadly I think it's the only part of the quest that actually reaches that level of like 10 out of 10 Easter egg goodness. Because that boss fight isn't just the highlight of the quest, it's one of the highlights of the game as a whole, and I think it sucks that it's stuck behind one of the weakest main quests in the game. I would go so far as to say that on a design level, Zetsubo's quest is better than Gorod's. Zetsubo's worst step was the plane step, which had some RNG involved, but everything else for that quest is pretty easy and just forgettable. But not offensively bad or anything, just easy and forgettable. Gorod Krovi's quest is definitely more fun to do, but that's just because Gorod is a fun map to play, not because the quest is better. Gorod's quest is also just really difficult and not in a fun way. I remember a ton of frustrated nights back in middle school after Zombies Chronicles came out, because me and some of my friends from back then decided that we would do the Black Ops 3 Super Easter egg over the summer. Mind you, we were not very good at zombies back then, but we beat Shadows of Evil in like a week and a half, Rise and Draken in like a week, Zetsubo in a few days, then spent the whole rest of the summer stuck on Gorod Krovi, and we never beat it. This quest is very punishing, and of the probably 50 or so times I've attempted this quest over the years, I think I've only beaten it like 4 or 5 times. I usually either die during the challenges or the boss fight. So maybe it's just a skill issue, I don't know, it might be. But Love and War is one of my least favorite main quests in Black Ops 3. But thankfully the map somewhat makes up for it with its roster of side Easter eggs. First up are the musical Easter eggs on the map, and there are 3 of them. There's Dead Ended, which is the map's Kevin Sherwood song. It's activated by interacting with 3 vodka bottles around the map. The first is right inside the department store when you walk in. The second is on the ground next to these dead bodies behind the department store, and the third is on a shelf behind the front desks of the supply depot. I really like Dead Ended, which may or may not be an unpopular opinion since it is sung by Clark S. Nova, and his zombie songs that he does the vocals for seem to be the least popular ones overall. Probably my least favorite Easter egg song out of all the main Kevin Sherwood songs in Black Ops 3, but it still is really good. The best part of the song by far is the main riff. It is so nasty, and it just hits really hard every single time I hear it. But the rest of the song is pretty good too, and it has a really good key change at the end, which means a lot coming from me since I'm normally not a huge fan of key changes in metal music. Then there's Ace of Spades by Motorhead. There's actually 2 ways of activating it. First is by interacting with the 3 Ace of Spades playing cards around the map. One is on the main desk in Dragon Command, another's on a desk at the hatchery, and the last is on the blackboard in the tank factory. But you can also activate the song a second time during the boss fight, as when Nikolai's phase of the fight starts, 3 speakers will spawn on top of utility poles around the arena, and if you shoot them, you'll activate the song again. Sadly, I can't play the song for you since it's copyrighted, but it is peak. And fun fact, the version used in Gorod Krovi isn't the original version of the song off of the Ace of Spades album from like 1980, it's actually a 2008 re-recording of the song. I always knew the version in Gorod was different, but it wasn't until writing the script that I did some digging and found the exact version used for Gorod Krovi. I even found a Reddit thread from years ago of someone asking if anyone knew what specific version of the song was used in Gorod Krovi. And some other guy was getting very mad at him for asking. Because they sound pretty much the same, so he should just be fine listening to the normal version. They're like 90% identical. It must be against that site's TOS to not be a condescending asshole all the time. And lastly is Samantha's Sorrow, Gorod's version of the Samantha's Lullaby Easter egg. To activate the song, you need to first throw monkey bombs into the fire left by the dragon at 3 different spots 3 different times. You'll hear Samantha laugh, and then you can head to Belinsky Square. There's a gravestone in one of the corners next to the fountain. On the grave will be a little Samantha doll. If you interact with it, a game of hide and seek will begin. Now you need to go find and shoot 5 different Samantha dolls all around the map. They are very hard to find since they're tiny, and the one way of locating them is by hearing them playing Samantha's Lullaby. If you shoot one, it'll explode into a blue smoke cloud, and once you get all 5 of them, you can head back to the grave and you'll see that the Samantha doll there is now standing upright. Interact with it again, and a skeleton's arm will take the doll, and you'll get a max ammo, and the song will begin. I love Samantha's Sorrow. It has a very different feel than most of the other variants and versions of Samantha's Lullaby. The main instrument is a balalaika, which fits the Russian theming of the map. The song is the most somber version of Samantha's Lullaby yet, and really encapsulates the mood of the story at this point in time on Gorod Krovi. But the song really gets good when the strings and a second balalaika comes in, which I guess is also a stringed instrument, but you get what I mean. Samantha's Sorrow might be my favorite version of Samantha's Lullaby aside from, like, the Magic Mix from Zetsubo, unless one of the 3's Chronicles remixes is a lot better than I remember them being, since I've barely listened to those versions of the song. And then pretty much all the other Easter eggs on the map provide you with upgrades to your equipment or straight up brand new tools to help you out, which I think is great. It really makes these Easter eggs worth doing. The most iconic of which are the helmets/accessories. And there are 3 of them: the Mangler helmet, the Valkyrie helmet, and the Dragon Wings. These are all very simple to get. For the Mangler helmet, you just need to shoot off the arms of 5 Manglers and the helmets off of 5 Manglers. For the Valkyrie helmet, you need to shoot all the arms off of 6 Valkyrie drones and then the cameras off of 6 Valkyrie drones. And then for the Dragon Wings, you just need to take the Dragon to Pack-a-Punch from all 3 possible locations and get the Shield, the Dragon Strike, and the Gauntlet of Siegfried. Each of these accessories can be found on mannequins inside of the department store. The Mangler helmet is in the back corner of the 2nd floor, the Valkyrie helmet is right next to the Juggernog machine, and the Dragon Wings are on the top floor. You can wear one at a time, and they all give you different gameplay buffs. The Valkyrie drone helmet makes you do extra damage to Valkyrie drones, as well as give you damage reduction to Valkyrie drones and any type of electrical damage. The Mangler helmet does the same, just that it's a damage buff against Manglers and a damage reduction against Manglers, and you don't get a 3rd buff with this one. It's solely focused on Manglers. And then the Dragon Wings are the most unique. They give you a damage resistance buff against fire damage and explosive damage, as well as making it free to call dragons to the platform to be taken to Pack-a-Punch. And it gives players wearing the wings a way to teleport back to Pack-a-Punch for free, by interacting with these metal posts with wings on them that appear after you unlock the wings. These accessories are a great evolution of the helmet Easter eggs in Shadows of Evil and Dreisendrach, you know, the Margwa helmet and the Panzer helmet. The problems with those Easter eggs was that they were so obscure and took so long to complete, especially the Margwa helmet on Shadows, that they're never really worth doing. I mean, hell, most casual players probably don't even know that those maps have helmet Easter eggs. But everyone knows about the helmets and wings on Gorod. Getting them is an integral part of most people's early game on Gorod Krovi because of how useful they actually are. And I like that there's not one that completely overshadows the others. For normal gameplay, most people like to use the Mangler helmet. For Easter eggs in the boss fight, the wings are super useful, since like 70% of the attacks in that boss fight are either fire or explosive based between Nikolai and the dragon. I mean, Nikolai's rockets in particular can insta-kill you, so any protection against those at all is vital. And being able to teleport to Pack-a-Punch for free is a great quality of life feature for those who get bored of the cutscene. And sure, the Valkyrie helmet is the worst, but it's also the coolest looking in my opinion, so for style points, that's the one to go with. I just really like the helmets and the wings. I'm super glad that Treyarch brought back this type of Easter egg after it was absent in Zetsubo. And then there's the shield upgrade. To get this, first you need to get 50 kills with the shield, which is made super easy by how good the fireball attack is during the early rounds. And then you have to let the shield bathe in the dragon's fire for the entire duration that it's on the ground a couple of times. Best to do it 2 or 3 times to play it safe. After you get the kills, you'll hear a dragon roar, and you gotta shoot 3 glowing pink Apothicon phrases at each dragon platform. There's one to the left behind Dragon Command on a wall, one at Supply Depot on a beam that you can see when looking up from the main floor of the building, and the one at the tank factory is on the shoulder of the Gigant robot to the right of the platform. Once you do all of this, you can head to the disemboweled dragon at spawn and place your shield into its stomach to upgrade it into the Tiamat's Maw, as well as making all future shields picked up from the workbench be upgraded as well, so only one person has to do this quest for the whole lobby to get upgraded shields. Tiamat's Maw is just a stronger version of the dragon shield. It has a ton more health, and its fireballs do a lot more damage, as well as having the color of the fireballs and the dragon head's eyes on the shield change from green to red. Way more straightforward and just fun to do than the upgrade quest for the rocket shields in Rise and Dragon Shadows of Evil, that's for sure. Then there's the Dragon Strike upgrade, which upgrades it into the Draconite controller. To get it, you need to get 50 kills with the Dragon Strike. Then you need to shoot the German Iron Cross flags outside of the map with your Dragon Strike. There's one at Dragon Command, one at the Tank Factory, one at the Supply Depot, and one at Belinsky Square. And you need to shoot one per person in your game. So if you're in solo, shoot one, two players shoot two, etc. The flag will disappear if you do this right, and then head to the hatchery and you'll be able to interact with the Dragon Strike console again and activate a second lockdown, or a third if you do the Easter egg. This lockdown is pretty much identical as the first since there's zombies and manglers, but you need to use the Dragon Strike as much as possible. It will occasionally recharge during this challenge, and you gotta use it whenever it does recharge or you'll fail. Complete the lockdown and you can pick up your Draconite controller. This makes it so that your Dragon Strike has two uses instead of just one, and the fireballs become red, much like the shield upgrade. This one's a little harder to do than the shield upgrade, and is a little less necessary than the shield upgrade, but it's still a really fun one to do every once in a while, even if it's just for the opportunity to do an extra lockdown at Pack-a-Punch with a ton of Dragon Strikes. It is so much fun, especially in co-op when there's a nearly endless barrage of fireballs just raining down at the Pack-a-Punch building. And then there's the Monkey Bomb upgrade, which is a little similar to the Little Arnie upgrade on Shadows of Evil. You need 3 items: a canteen, a vase of flowers, and a candle. The vase of flowers is the easiest, since it always spawns in the same place every single game, on the main desk in Dragon Command. The candle's a bit more involved, but also really easy. The candle can spawn at one of 4 places around the map, but is usually always in the supply depot, at least on solo. I think the other spawns are for co-op if you have multiple people who are doing this quest. You have to light the candle before you can pick it up, but this is as easy as just shooting it with the shield's fireball, so this part is still super easy to acquire. The hardest part to get is the canteen/flask, because you actually need to get the monkey bombs to acquire it. And I don't know if it's just me, but monkey bombs seem incredibly rare on Gorod Krovi, rarer than any of the other maps in the game. Although maybe it's just because aside from the giant, Gorod Krovi is the one map where you have a reason to get monkey bombs aside from just wanting to have them, but I feel like I get them a lot easier on the giant. I have heard online that the monkey bombs are just rarer to get out of the box in Black Ops 3 in general than in Black Ops 1 and 2, and trying to get monkeys for this Easter egg just highlights that for me. They are so rare in this game. Once you get the monkeys, you gotta get 50 kills with them, and the 50th zombie will drop the canteen. Once you have all 3 pieces, the vase, the candle, and the canteen, you have to head back to your challenge gravestone and throw a monkey bomb onto the grave. You'll see the other items are gathered at the gravestone. Then look at and interact with the green flame on top of the grave. A skeleton hand will rise up from the ground and give you your upgraded monkey bomb. This monkey bomb plays dubstep instead of the normal monkey bomb music, and it pulses red every single time it jumps. Each time it pulses, it'll kill all the zombies around it, and it does infinite damage, so this thing will in fact kill forever. It is super useful and a really neat quest to do to upgrade it. And lastly, Gorod Krovi has a new kind of Easter egg, time trials. You'll probably notice that this map introduces an in-game timer. It's a really nice quality of life thing, especially for Easter egg speedrunners. And since, if you beat the Easter egg in under 90 minutes, you get an extra reward, a better perkaholic, so it gives you something in-game to keep track of the time. But it also serves another purpose, timing yourself for the time trials. Basically, if you beat rounds 5, 10, 15, and 20, under specific time constraints you'll be given XP and a unique melee weapon, which you'll be able to buy from the wooden board next to the electric trap in the operations bunker. If you beat round 5 in less than 5 minutes, you'll get the wrench. If you beat round 10 in less than 13 minutes, you'll get the malice dagger. I was going to say that it's very similar to Willard Wyler's dagger from Infinite Warfare Zombies, but then I checked the wiki page for the weapon and it actually is the same as Willard Wyler's dagger. So that is very, very cool. And we can call that case closed. Infinite Warfare is canon to the rest of the Ether story in Treyarch Zombies. I do think Lee Ross owes me a high five for figuring out that one after all these years. If you beat round 15 in less than 24 minutes, you'll get the Slash and Burn Fire Axe. And if you beat round 20 in less than 32 minutes, you'll get the Fury Song Sword. The time trials rock. It does kind of suck that you pretty much need to dedicate your whole game to completing these, since those time limits are not generous at all, especially not the round 5 and 10 ones. But I like that they act as a good way for people to kind of dip their toes into zombie speedrunning with something simpler than a whole Easter egg quest. You just have to play the game itself faster. I feel very conflicted because the lineup of side Easter eggs on Gorod Krovi is absolutely stacked, like some of the best in the game, just hands down. Just tons of ways to upgrade yourself and the equipment you're using to make your match easier. And then the main quest is one of the most frustrating experiences in the whole game, topped off with one of the best boss fights that the game mode has ever had to offer. When I was sitting down and just kind of getting my thoughts in order about the map before typing up my script, my thoughts were pretty much that, yeah, the quest is really hard, but that boss fight though. And then I started thinking more critically about it, and it just kind of falls apart beyond that. I know the Valve step has been a punching bag for like a decade now, but that is legitimately such horrible game design that it's impressive. But even discounting how shitty that step is, because it's better to just skip it by using Chronorium.com, no one solves that thing legit, ever, I don't think. I just find a lot of the rest of the quest to be very boring and kind of a slog to get through, like, the whole challenge portion of the quest. There's a couple fun challenges, but most of them I could take or leave. I'd rather leave most of them, frankly. I don't know, I just feel like the map's main quest is legitimately its weakest aspect, which is disappointing considering how good the quests in Black Ops 3 can be, like Shadows of Evil and Horizon Drop. If Gorod Krovi's main quest was just better thought out, with the Valve step being reworked and either cutting down on or removing entirely all the escort quest stuff, with maybe an extra realistically solvable puzzle for good measure, I can see Gorod Krovi's quest being an all-time great. It's already got an all-time great boss fight, but it just sucks that the rest of the quest doesn't live up to that same level. It sucks to end on such a low note, but I do want to clarify, I really like Gorod Krovi. It's easily my third, or my fifth favorite map in the game. Okay, my middle placements of the Black Ops 3 maps shift around a ton, but I do really love Gorod Krovi. It's got some of the most challenging gameplay in the game and an appropriately oppressive atmosphere to boot. The layout is cramped, but not too cramped. It's still a very well-designed map. Despite being more challenging, it's a ton easier to just pick up and play than Zetsubo was. Honestly, it's the most beginner-friendly out of any of the Black Ops 3 maps, since getting the Wonder Weapon and Pack-a-Punch are about as simple as it gets, especially by Black Ops 3 standards. The only map that's easier in that regard is the Giant, but that's a World at War map remade in Black Ops 3. And the map is just loaded with extra side quests and challenges for you to do if you want to spice up your experience. The story and character work is some of the best that Zombies has ever had, especially regarding Nikolai. This is his map, and he really does shine on it. Prince Nikolai is such a tragic character. They'd been hinting towards that for the whole DLC season leading up to here, and it's great to see all that stuff finally pay off. The payoff is so well done. Even Dr. Monty, as polarizing as he is, I really like the addition of. Adding a godlike figure to Zombies seems to really signal that we were reaching a climactic endpoint for the story, and considering that Gorod Krovi was, for a good while, the penultimate chapter of Zombies, that fits a lot. Again, everything about this map ranges from good to great, except for that main quest. If that quest was better designed, I could potentially see Gorod being my favorite map in the game, but as it is, I feel like it falls behind maps like Shadows of Evil and Horizon Drop, and even Zetsubo no Shima to an extent. Since those maps have all-around stronger main quests, even if their boss fights don't come close to the Dragon and Nikolai boss fight in Gorod Krovi. When Gorod Krovi released, it was seen as a huge breath of fresh air by the community and was received incredibly well. The community was at an all-time high and was more hyped than ever to see how Black Ops 3 would conclude in Revelations. So you're just gonna have to come back next time as we conclude the retrospective with Revelations. Peace out, God bless, and I'll see you then. Also, Gorod Krovi sucks because the dragons, they're not dragons, they're wyverns. I just thought you should know that.
Yeah, cause I got it like that. Flow so smooth like I got it on tap. Yeah, and I'ma say it be a good night while I'm on my Yingling, while I'm drinking Bud Light. Can you get it when you miss